Hello, and welcome back
Hi.
to Goalie Interference. Yeah, you're kind of terrifying looking right now.
This is Halloween. It's not
Yeah,
Halloween, but I hope people
it's
are watching and
something.
going, "Ah!"
It is
You
kind of
can't hear
terrifying.
you can't hear this on the podcast, but I got the lights shining straight up in my face like the old Nickelodeon show, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, well, I'm afraid of
That
your dark.
okay, well, I'll just have to change this and go.
That's a little
We'll
better.
make it
There
look a
we
little
go.
bit better.
Well, all right. Well, as he figures that out, I will tell you that there is just one day left in the regular season for the Golden Knights. One game left. It's a game in Seattle. If they get 1 point, they win the division. They win the conference in the regular season. They're the number one seed all the way for the first 3 rounds. And they would play the Winnipeg Jets. Not my favorite because I don't really want to fly to Winnipeg. Nonetheless, I don't hate the matchup. We're going to go through all 3 matchups. We'll do that as we go. But the bigger news, maybe than the season ending, because I think people probably could have figured that out, is it starts to look like the Golden Knights are getting healthy. And I think there's a realistic shot now that when we get to game 1, round 1 of the playoffs, that it is literally every single person except for Robin Leonard will be available. I think Mark Stone might play. Like, I really do think it's possible Mark Stone plays the very first game of the playoffs. Eichel almost certainly is. Theodore almost certainly is. White Cloud's trending in that direction.
And
I don't know where Thompson's going to be, but
Will Carrier
probably wouldn't go. Will Carrier will not. You're right. Will Carrier will not. He has not skated. It doesn't look so good there. So we should throw him in as possibly not there. But as a whole, like, gotta like what they're looking at health-wise, even though there are some guys banged up, but you have to like what we're looking at, right?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, considering how well the Golden Knights have played with largely a beat-up team here, and look what happened last season, okay? And this is where, I think you do see the differences between DeBoer's style and Cassidy's style, right? DeBoer's style was just, man, up-tempo, go, go, go. We got to go for it, okay? And I'm a little hot in here. By the way, it's 80 degrees in St. Louis, so I'm going to take the old sweatshirt off. But in any case, like,
it is here.
DeBoer's lineup for me, like when you get a full complement of players, like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Yeah. But Cassidy's system is more friendly to missing players out of the lineup. It's just frankly more friendly to being in games more often because you're not just it's not as risky of a system straight up as DeBoer's was. So yeah, man, I straight up, like, I'm impressed with Vegas to the extent that I'm not writing them off here coming out of the Western Conference in any way. Like, I think here's what I will say though. If the Vegas Golden Knights were to make it out of the Western Conference to make the Stanley Cup Finals, it's going to take 6 and 7 game series the whole way. Like, I don't see them
round 1, maybe not.
First round, whatever. But it's going to be grinded out hockey, I think.
For sure. The second 2 rounds, I would agree. Yeah.
But honestly, like, Ken, realistically speaking here, how can you really bet heavy against the Golden Knights against any of these clubs?
You shouldn't.
Right. Exactly.
No, and that doesn't mean there aren't concerns or issues that we're potentially going to look at, and we'll get to them a little bit further. I think we wanted to kind of more start with some of the teams that are potentially who they're going to face. But before I do that, I'll tell you that this episode and all episodes of Goalie Interference are brought to you by the Jimerson Law Firm. Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, Golden Knights have lost, like 4 times since the All-Star break? I think it might be 7, but not much. When winning matters, seek out the Jimerson Law Firm. So here's here's what it looks like for those who don't know. Basically, anything but a Golden Knights loss in regulation coupled with an Edmonton win, anything but that results in the Golden Knights starting with the Jets. The Jets would come here for games 1 and 2. The Golden Knights and me would go up to Winnipeg. I would probably have to go through Grand Forks. We'll see how that goes. We're still fingers crossed that may not have to happen. Nonetheless, we'll see.
You're not legally allowed to fly across a border. I get it.
Oh, no, I'm legally allowed to fly across the border. The difference in price is ridiculous. And time. Sure. It's actually cheaper to go the other way. However, it is still possible they play LA or Seattle. Now, LA seems more likely than Seattle. Of course, we're giving Seattle the win if Vegas loses. That's how it works when teams play each other. LA plays the Ducks, we have to assume that the Kings are going to at least get a point.
They better win
against
that
the
game.
Ducks. So I think we should probably start with the team that, based on this, looks pretty clearly who they're going to play, and that's the Jets. So there's a Jets lineup. The Jets lineup, it's important to note that Cole Perfetti would certainly be in the Jets lineup. I would imagine one of those names on the third line would come out. Appleton would probably shift down. It's possibly Mesnikov would. Nonetheless, they're not that far from healthy. They have a lot of good players. What jumps out when you see that lineup on the screen?
It's not as much about the lineup. It's just about how that team has had some top players chronically underperform this season for long stretches. Now, let's make sure we preface this by saying, hey, the Winnipeg Jets are in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Okay, they were one of the best,
they made it.
I don't know if we can say best 16 teams because the Jets were overall in the league. Well, they were 14th. 19. So there we go, right? So, we can't say they were terrible. They weren't terrible. They started the year really well, but they limped into the playoffs. And they've been really okay for a while. And I think part of that, and I'm going to get to the players here in a second, but I think part of that really is it's somewhat symptomatic of Rick Bowness's teams that he's very much a motivation-oriented coach. I don't think he's as much of a X's and O's tactile guy as others. And we saw this firsthand with the Dallas Stars when they faced off against the Vegas Golden Knights. Bowness has a chance to somehow rally the troops to a fever pitch and get them to perform. But it can go the other direction for long periods, right? Where the team just kind of loses it. They lose their structure. The ace in the hole for the Winnipeg Jets is Connor Hellebuck, who for my money has been one of the top 3 goalies in the league this year. Now that's a hard metric, right? Honestly, I know Ullmark's going to win the Vezina. I don't know if I'm going to vote for him. I don't get to.
Really?
It's the GMs. Well, the GMs get to vote for it, which is the stupidest thing. Like GMs know anything about goaltending. But you could probably take Ullmark, Sorokin, Hellebuck, and Saros, those 4, and probably for my money, throw the award at any of the 4, I guess, honestly. But Ullmark's going to win it. Hellebuck, I think, had the best season of his career. Now, his save percentage last I checked was at a 919, his career high. The season that he won the Vezina was a 922. The difference for me is that Hellebuck's played I think he has 63 starts this season. And he had 56 that year for the Vezina. I actually don't see that as a positive for Winnipeg, though, because they ran Hellebuck so hot leading up to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I do wonder if he'll be a little overworked, but he's also just feeling it. He hasn't allowed more than 3 goals against in the last 13 or 14 starts.
64 games, by the way.
Thank you. And like I say, he hasn't allowed more than 3 goals against, I don't think, in 13 games.
That's good.
He's been amazing down the stretch, just amazing. So he's the ace in the hole. He can steal games. He could probably steal a series. For me, the guy I like the most on Winnipeg of all people is probably Adam Lowry. I think he's kind of the dark horse of that team to do some big things because he was never anything more than a 3rd or 4th liner, right? 20 points a year, great penalty killer. This year, though, his point totals have really crept up. He's shooting the puck a lot. He's still a big killer for them. I think he's a real heartbeat guy for them. Not a game changer, though. The game changer on that team is Kyle Connor. Yep. He's the guy that if the puck's on his blade, you go, oh, shit.
Golden Knights
But
killer.
He's been so streaky this year. So if you can keep Kyle Connor quiet, if you can keep Nikolai Ehlers quiet, because when you forget about Ehlers because he's missed a lot.
Did not play any of the games against the Golden Knights.
Right. And he's just under a point a game this year, a little bit less than that. I'm not really scared of Scheifele and Wheeler anymore. Wheeler more so than Scheifele, even though Scheifele scored 43 goals, he's a liability. Defensively, the guy's lost. So you can take advantage. I think the Golden Knights matchup against the top line of Winnipeg is much better, and especially under Cassidy's system. So I think you're going to see a battle of really the 2nd and 3rd lines that are going to come out on top in this series if this would be the case. And I actually like the decor of Winnipeg pretty well. I like DeMello a lot. Pionk's pretty good. Morrissey's had a great season. Schmidt, you guys know Schmidt well, Dylan as well. So Winnipeg is an okay team. with a great goaltender and
Yep.
with some firepower. They just don't bring it every night.
So one of the things that was interesting that Cassidy brought up today, and this was completely on his own. It was not a question that was asked. It was not anything of that sort. He just kind of brought it up that at different times you can see different types of teams in the playoffs. There are teams who have nothing to lose. There are teams who have everything to prove. There are teams that have too much pressure on their back. And then he said sometimes there are teams that they think it's their last hurrah, whether that's based on age or based on unrestricted free agency, that they know different players are going to go away. And he said he wasn't quite sure about Winnipeg, but he kind of had that feeling that maybe Winnipeg is. I looked it up. Winnipeg really does not have a lot of guys that contracts are expiring. A couple, Nemesnikov and Kuhlman, Gagne.
Yeah, but that team's going to get blown up if they don't win, though.
That's exactly where I was going, is age becomes an issue. Blake Wheeler's 36, Mark Scheifele's 30, Niederreiter's 30, Lowry's 30, Nemesnikov's 30. They're getting a little on the old side. Even the defense, 28, 31, 27, 32, 29. They're getting a little old. And you look at this opportunity for them, and that's where Rick Bowness comes in, like you were saying. He does have the ability to kind of motivate teams, and he's shown that he knows how to do it against the Golden Knights. And so I look at this team, and I don't think that they can play the style that beats the Golden Knights. Like when I looked at Dallas, I said they can play that style. I didn't really think Vancouver did, and then they kind of did it. I wasn't really sure Montreal did it, and they could do it. I don't know how Morrissey, DeMello, Dillon, Pionk, Sandberg, Schmidt, and maybe if Logan Stanley's in there, and I can make an argument that they should put 6'7" Logan Stanley in there. I don't know how they're going to play lockdown hockey. So I think they're going to have to play a little bit more of an up-tempo game. And in theory, that should lead to more opportunities for the Golden Knights. It does then come down to Hellebuck. And then now we're talking about a little, like, I don't know where the motivation is going to fall in, but like I could see them being the more motivated, it's an easier series for them than it is the Golden Knights. That's because I think the Golden Knights are the better team, right?
By a mile. I honestly don't.
I'm not sure it's by a mile. Look at the rosters.
I hate, but that roster has just underperformed.
I get that, but
like here's where Cassidy's. Like he might be chucking Winnipeg in on this, but everything that Cassidy's reference point is Boston. It's his closest memory. That's what's at the forefront of his mind. And that whole last hurrah thing is based on Bergeron and Krejci and those guys out there in Boston. And I think he's projecting Boston onto Winnipeg, if you ask me. And I'm not saying that to be a dick or anything. I think that's just kind of what naturally happens when you start to compare teams, right? And so, like, Winnipeg's going to get blown up at the end of this year if they're out in the first. They should be blown up, period. Honestly,
right? Unless they win 12 playoff games. Yeah.
Unless they go to the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference Finals somehow.
At least 8.
They've got to trade away Scheifele or Wheeler and change this thing up, or get rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois because the guy doesn't want to be there. He wants to be in Montreal anyway. Like, start it over. They've got to get younger, like you said.
Right,
so, but I don't feel like this team, like how up and down have they been? I don't feel like this Winnipeg team loves each other like Boston. I would
agree with that. But when you look at the actual roster and you look at a first line of Connor, Dubois, Scheifele, that's pretty darn good compared to what the Golden Knights are going to roll out, even with Mark Stone. And we don't expect Mark Stone to be quite 100%, at least not when he first comes in. Like if you're looking at, I guess it would probably end up being Stevenson there. I guess it could potentially be Dorofeev. If it's Dorofeev or Amadio, Stone and Eichel, like I don't mind that first line matchup against those. Like I think Winnipeg might have that. The second line, it's misfits against Ehlers, Wheeler, and Nemesnikov. That's not bad. The third lines are fairly close. The Golden Knights have a benefit on the fourth line. I don't think any of those fourth liners are any good. I think the Golden Knights have a little bit more of like a identity to how their fourth line is going to play. They have different guys who can chip in. Defensively, I don't love it, but we've seen what Morrissey can do. We've seen what Pionk can do. We know what both DeMello and Dillon have done to the Golden Knights in playoff series at different times. I look at some of that and I say, like, it's going to have to be depth scoring and blue line that are going to overcome the difference in goaltenders. I think they can do it. I just don't think it's as straightforward as maybe it would look and what it's going to look when I'm going to pull up Seattle.
I am more concerned about Seattle than Winnipeg, period.
Really? All right,
Yep.
let's move it to Seattle because I completely disagree with that. Here's Seattle's roster.
Give me a reason beyond the fact that Seattle's goaltending is not up to par of why you believe they would be an easier out than the Winnipeg Jets.
Style of play is the biggest thing. But I believe that team has to forecheck you to death. They must dominate you in forecheck, and they have to play the style where you basically don't get all that much because you're just trying to stave off drowning in your own end. The time that they beat the Golden Knights, I was in Qatar at the time. I actually have watched the game back multiple times now. They forechecked the Golden Knights into death. They turned them over and over again. If the Golden Knights break the puck out, none of their offensive weapons make any difference. And it really just comes down to, can that defense withhold or withstand what the Golden Knights will throw at them? And for 5 games out of 6 so far in the history of the franchise, they have not. I like the Golden Knights lineup. I like the Golden Knights matchup on every single line except the third. I like the first, second, fourth, first pair, second pair, third pair, and I don't mind the goalie matchup. And I like the depth better in Vegas.
I like that fourth line on Seattle a lot, actually.
It's all right. It's all right.
When Donato and Tanev are on, and I do agree the third's really strong with Borkstrand and Gordon for the most part. By the way, I don't know how the hell Nashville decided to let Eli Tolvanen go.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Crazy. I don't know, man. Like I've thought for a long time Seattle can't defend, and I don't think I really have any different opinion about that. They're not great at defending, and their goaltending's not very good.
How are they going to win a playoff series?
But like there's like, and this is where I kind of have to go on feel sometimes, you know, that none of us really gave Seattle a chance this year.
True.
I sure as hell didn't. Like, and honestly, I thought Dave Hack still was kind of staring down a barrel if he didn't get it going this year. And I think he's done a really good job because I watched Seattle, and it's a team that really does have an identity, man. Like, and most nights they play to it. Like they're
not when they play Vegas.
They're fast. They're a little bit loose. Yeah, for whatever reason, Vegas is the one team, though. Okay, so I think
it's not. It's not though. Sorry. Let me just give you a stat that I was thrown at yesterday from one of my buddies from another site that covers the Kraken. They have not beaten a playoff team at home since January.
Yeah,
they've only beaten like 2 on the road since January. Like they don't beat good teams.
Yeah, they take care of business though, and this is where you kind of have to go
wrong.
This is where you kind of have to go on Bernier's.
Yeah,
but this is where you kind of have to go on feel, and I do not believe the Seattle Kraken are going to knock off the Vegas Golden Knights. My only point is I think they're going to be a harder out than the Winnipeg Jets. I think the Jets will be done in like 5 games. I think they're going to fold unless Connor Hellebuck just stands on his noggin, which it could. It can. But Seattle is going to be a big-time thorn in somebody's side that's going to take it in 6 games. And if that's Vegas, it's Vegas. They will somehow outscore a team for 2 games. They'll scare a team, but they won't be able to muster up the defense to win a series. They're not going to get swept. Like I think
I agree.
I'd put ice cream on it. Okay, I fucking love ice cream.
I'll take ice cream. I'll take ice cream that Seattle's first round. If it's 5 or 6, we push. I win on sweep. You win on game 7. They're more likely to get swept than push a series to 7.
Can you go?
And they're not winning.
Let's go over that again. Give it to me again here.
I win ice cream if the Kraken gets swept. And I'm now realizing that I spelled Wenberg's name wrong too. What a disaster!
Just put some extra ends in there. Continue.
Horrible. I win ice cream if the Kraken gets swept in the first round. You win ice cream if the Kraken go to 7 or win a series.
7? No, 6. I said 6.
Oh.
6 is a pain in the ass.
Six is an accident. Like, you're not good if you go to game
we're not
6
talking
and lose 4-2.
We're not talking about high school oopsie kids here, Ken. We're talking about the national. It's not an accident. 6 games. You take a team to 6 games, you scare them. I've been there. So. You're making somebody nervous if you get to 6 because you get to 3-2 at some point in that series. You're sweating. 6 games. This is the ice cream bet. Let's go to the comments. We're going to go to the comments.
All right.
Do I deserve ice cream if Seattle takes it to 6? We need your.
Or does it have to be 7? And like, keep in mind, the only way I'm winning is if they get swept. I'm even giving you them winning a series, which I don't think is horribly likely at all. If they win the series, I'll give you the ice cream. All I want is that they get swept and I get ice cream. I think that's a fair deal. You shouldn't get 6. Yeah, Nick's right. Should be 7. Yeah, listen to
6. Whatever. Water boy's on my side. Thanks, Sam. Sam's on my side too.
I am purposely not going to click on those comments.
Millburger.
All right, let's move to the other team. Let's move to the last team that's possible. This is the one that I think we've all pretty much been on the same page that this is a bit of a problem if the Golden Knights get them. I think it's a 7-game series. I think it comes down to which goaltenders play better in that 7-game series. I think it's going to be difficult. I should note that in speaking with my friends that cover the Kings, they believe Kevin Fiala will play. They are not sure on Gabe Vilardi. So that's why I left Vilardi out. This was a lineup that was sent to me by the mayor, John Hovan. So this is the lineup that I put in there. It's deep. It is strong. It defends. They have a goalie in there. Like, I think this is a good team.
Nothing more to. Okay, yeah, they are a very good team, and that team's been hurt by injuries right now. And it's crazy because there's not a lot of injuries, but Kevin Fiala is an integral part of that team in LA.
Anderson too.
Mikey Anderson on defense too, right? So you take 2 big parts out. I think Alexander Edler, even though they have a gluttony of defense, I think Edler draws in as a 5-6 in playoffs.
Oh, I meant to put him over on the side. The news on him is that he was skating today, potentially back in. Both people that I spoke to that cover the Kings said they think that Sean Walker is better, but they believe the Kings think Edler is better.
I agree with that assessment, but I also think there's a chance Edler could be the panic scratch. You know what I mean? This guy's not playing well.
We got to do something. Yeah, we got to do something.
Yeah. But for me, I've said this about the Kings all year. I think they're the best 1-2 200-foot punch. 1-2 200-foot.
Yep. Kopitar and Danault.
Let's do this again. The best 1-2 punch of 200 feet centerman in the NHL with Kopitar and Danault. That said, you really need Fiala to make it work with Danault because Danault's foot speed, his creativity, the offensive side, it's a lot different with Trevor Moore if he's there than it is Kevin Fiala because Fiala is the guy you want to have the puck on his stick. And you need the responsibility of Danault to be able to let Fiala do his thing. So, and especially, if you're still looking at Vilardi out, like Vilardi's a guy who can slot up into the second line if you need it too, and he's out.
By the way, people are yelling at me. I did forget to put Phoenix Copley on there as the backup. It was mainly because I don't feel like spelling Phoenix. So I just left Martin Jones there. That's purposeful. And I'm hopeful that Martin Jones is on every team because the more teams Martin Jones is on, the better off the Golden Knights are. Go ahead.
So, yeah, man, LA scares me when they're healthy, straight up. They haven't had a whole lot of confidence in the last couple of weeks here. I don't think it's going to matter come playoff time. I wonder, though, about game 1 and 2. LA is a team to me that because they have had players hurt and they've had a negative run with those players out. Let's say you get Fiala and Edler back in the lineup. Okay, let's say even if Vilardi, if all 3 of those guys draw in, Mikey Anderson, you name it, if they all draw in the lineup.
Yep. So Walker would be out, and then I would assume Grundstrom's out. Fiala goes up, Moore goes down there, and Vilardi goes at where Fiala is.
Let's just say that they have a completely full lineup. Because they've lost a bunch, because those players are coming back in, I think if you win the first game or 2 of a series, it's going to really put LA on their heels. I don't know how they would respond because they're still not quite yet that juggernaut team,
Nope.
And that's another advantage.
A little bit there. But... Yeah.
But that's another advantage, I think, for Vegas, especially we've talked about them being able to keep winning with players out, is that they've kept that good feeling, man. And they've been able to grind, and they've been able to move people interchangeably around. And they got Plan E, Ken. They got Plan E. They got Mike Amadio, who's also on a revenge tour against the LA Kings, which is just that's a shit. But I'm making that up.
The thing with Amadio is like the goals to me. I don't know what we're going to get in the playoffs because I look at where he's scoring these goals, how he's scoring these goals, and I don't know that we're going to get as much transition, him standing next to the goal opportunities. Now, I'm happy that he's willing to do that. I think he will continue to try to do that. I do expect him to get a goal per series that way, but I don't think that we can pencil him in for multiple goals in a series. What I have liked even more, though, about him is what he's doing in the defensive zone. He had 2 plays. I clipped them. They're on the site right now. If you want to go see them, just click the article about Amadio. He's really good at clipping the puck off the wall with his back to the goal and putting it on the tape of either Carlson or Smith flying out of the zone. If he continues to play with those players, which we're going to get into this next, I think that that's a good setup in that they can defend. They're going to be able to get transition chances. It's going to help to see that's going to help Carlson and Carlson and Smith do good things. I think he's a good fit with those two, more so than Dorofeev, more so than even Marchessault, because I think Marchessault offers something different to some of these other lines. I like the idea of him staying there. I guess the question becomes, Mark Stone comes back in. A, who's going out? Could be Amadio. And B, does the misfit line reunite? Does Stevenson go up? Do they leave someone else and have Eichel and Stone drag somebody along? How do you see it, assuming Stone plays game 1, and you have to think he's playing with Eichel?
I don't think you're going to see Amadio come out of the lineup. Do you, Ken?
I would not.
I don't. Especially the way Cassidy's raved about him lately. I mean,
but I think they know if the plan is to keep Dorofeev in, if you're moving Amadio down to play with Kolazar and line, I don't think that's going to get you much. And we saw it 20 games this season. His first 20 games this season, he had 3 points. Like,
he has got to be with better players.
He has to play up the lineup, and I think I'm more comfortable with him than Dorofeev still.
I am too. And this is where I love, like, when you put Stone back in the lineup, Eichel's back. By the way, Eichel's going to score a hat trick tomorrow night because Pat McAfee's going to donate $100,000 to the charity of his choice. Would that not be awesome, though, honestly?
That would be pretty great.
That would be so cool. You put Eichel in, you put Stone in, you Theodore back in.
Yep, he'll be back in.
Listen,
probably not tomorrow, but yeah.
If this Vegas Golden Knights team can't score with those guys in and Dorofeev out, they got a problem. So, I mean, at some point you got to look to the responsibility. You got to look at the moment. You got to look at Dorofeev and go, he's done a great job. Do we need him in? Can he be our X factor to put him in the lineup if there is somebody that's not good enough to go?
When there's an injury.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's amazing. Like, Paul Cotter's kind of an afterthought at this point, right?
Well, I think Cotter kind of now falls, like, Cotter for a moment was a guy that was potentially we needed someone with more skill that we can move up. He was potentially thought of as one of those guys. I think that's kind of faded. And now he's like, well, do we want Bluger or Howden or Kolazar or Cotter? And you kind of have to make your decision where that goes. I think Cotter will play playoff games because I think there will be times where Kolazar's not useful, Bluger is not useful, Howden's not useful.
Don't you think Cotter fits pretty well in a playoff series? At least his effort and his energy.
Depends, because to me, sometimes the effort and the energy guys, I lose faith in the playoffs because I expect the effort and energy to come up from everybody. So if that's what you're relying on, if you're the energy merchant, I don't think that necessarily translates as well in the postseason as it does in a regular season. I could very well be wrong on that, but that's kind of my read on that is I'd rather have skill. I'd rather have something you do well. Howden goes to the goal, Kolazar hits people, Bluger defensive zone starts, like those types of things where I don't necessarily know. And we lose Cotter's best skill, which is shootout.
Well, hey, everybody needs a shootout hero in the regular season.
It's fine. It's fine.
But this is kind of right back to where we were at the start of the year. We didn't think Cotter was. I mean, Cotter wouldn't have made the opening night roster if there wasn't openings.
Probably not. I mean, I think he's on the roster, but I don't think he's in the games.
Correct. Yes, thank you. Well, and he had such an amazing training camp that he had such an amazing training camp that he did have a chance and should have made that roster. But he's the type of player.
He earned it, but yeah. Go ahead.
The typical arc of that type of player is that they're up for, 10, 15 games. They get some minutes. It goes okay. Maybe they have a big game or two. And then it's kind of like, oh, you know what, son? I think it's time to go back down to the American League and ply your trade and be ready next year. And that never happened, which credit to Cotter. He made it stick. But to me, Cotter's job got taken by Barbashev. Barbashev was a better version of Cotter.
Yep.
Easy as that.
Completely agree.
Barbashev's not coming out of the lineup. No chance of that.
Probably not. I mean, it's possible. I think it is possible, but I don't think it's likely.
No, I'll put the biggest Billy on it. Barbashev isn't healthy. They will not health bomb Ivan Barbashev. No chance. No way. I'll put a.
I don't love him in the defensive zone, Mike. I do not like him in the defensive zone. When his back is in the defensive zone, when his back is to the goal he's shooting at, when he's facing his own goal, I don't like him in the defensive zone. And I think if they get in a series where they're struggling to get out of their own end, I think they might look at him. Like, I honestly do not believe it's crazy to think that it's possible that all three trade acquisitions are not in the lineup in the same game in a playoff game. I think it's possible.
No chance on Barbashev.
Okay.
Bluger, I could see Bluger missing games. I mean, he was part of the rotation out. He's been okay at times. They have plenty of penalty killers. I don't think Bluger really brings a ton that the team has to have in the lineup. I can't figure out, though, do you have a good read on how Cassidy feels about Kolesar?
Won't take him out. Has not been taken out all season long.
Right.
I do not understand it. I never understand that position. I made part of an entire brand that I've had for a while is I do not get that position. I would much prefer anyone else in that. Although he does go to the goal. He does tip pucks. He is not a bad forechecker. He can carry the puck into the zone. So all the things that I thought Reeves was completely useless at, other than starting riots at the end of games, shout out to Ryan for that yesterday. Way to go, bud. Super exciting. I think there are things that Kolesar can do that Reeves could not. That I think that he does bring something more so offensively. And there's less physicality on this team than the teams that Reeves played on. When they had the Pacioretty's and there were some other guys that would hit
meat grinder line.
Right. They
had Reeves Nosek. Here they come. Heads up.
Yeah. I don't think they quite have that as much. So having a little bit of that element in the lineup isn't bad. I just think depending on who you're playing, you may not actually need that.
It feels like Kolesar's a lock, doesn't it? And there's
by the way, a couple people have said there's no shootouts in overtime. I'm well aware of that. My point was that if you play Paul Cotter, you don't get his best asset, which is shootouts, because there aren't shootouts. That's what I was trying to say.
So somebody over here, Sam asks in the chat, in the comments, that actually I think is a really good question, asking about the leaders in the room if they have any input. The question is, do the leaders in the room ever have any input on a playoff roster composition? Would Eichel or Stone have a voice with Cassidy? In terms of the actual composition of the roster, no. But I will say this, that I would bet you anything Cassidy at least very much picks Mark Stone's brain, because Mark Stone's one of the greatest hockey minds I've ever met, and I think Cassidy values that. But when I say
he picks the line,
but here's
play on.
Here's what I'm going to say. I don't think the composition of the roster by any chance is ever talked about. But conversations between players and coaches, especially in a leadership group, can take place of, man, I really think this guy works well with this guy. right? Combinations like, boy, I really like working with this guy. I think our power play, if we do this, there is a groupthink aspect to the players that you really trust in a locker room. I'd be surprised if Eichel fit that mold. I think Stone is unquestionably there. I think Pietrangelo is there. I think Riley Smith is there. There's a very select grouping of players that I think coaches really lean on to try to like, data mine things that could work for a team. So, Sam, I think that's a great question, because part of your question, I think, actually does happen. It's just not the actual composition. Like, players are not going to say, yeah, you need this guy in the lineup or out of the lineup. But I do think the players can affect, and at least with some coaches. Daryl Sutter does whatever the hell he wants. And he's not going to be doing whatever he wants behind an NHL bench next year. But today's coaches, Cassidy's, Montgomery's, and even as much of a hard ass as we make Cassidy out to be sometimes, the guy's really intelligent. He knows where to look for information. And sometimes it's from your players, can be your best asset like that. So I think it was a great question, Sam.
Well, we have a couple of people mentioning Dorofeev over Kolazar. I don't think that's an option. I don't think it's this or that. When you look at how the roster is going to shake out, I think at the moment, if Mark Stone is out, I think you're probably going to end up seeing both Dorofeev and Amadio in the top 9, I guess I would call it. However you want to describe the line. There's an argument to be made that Barbashev, Stevenson, Kessel is better than potentially the Carlson, Smith, Amadio line. I wouldn't make that argument, but you potentially could. I think he's in there. I think Dorofeev stays with Eichel and Marcia. So I think he stays on that line at that moment. I do think that could change. If Mark Stone comes back, one of those two goes out. It's not does Howden, Bluger, or Kolazar come out. It's one of those two that comes out, because the value of what they're going to give you, you're going to get more out of those other players down the lineup than you would up the lineup. And this is one of the things that I think the Golden Knights need to kind of look at heading into this postseason. These are some numbers Jason dug out. Jason is not feeling great today, so he'll not be joining us. Nonetheless, he did dig me up some numbers. When the Golden Knights allow exactly 3 goals this season, they are 1-12-0. When they allow exactly 3 goals, they are 1-12-0. When they allow a 4th goal, they are 4-9-1. So if they allow 3 or more, they are 5-21-1. 5-21-1. In other words, they cannot allow 3 goals in the postseason, period. They can't do it. So that's
why Seattle's scary.
Right.
Seattle likes to run a gun. This is what I'm saying, Ken.
So does Winnipeg. And then that kind of does the opposite with how we look at LA. I get that. It kind of does the opposite of what we do with LA. Well, like LA scares us a little bit. Well, they're not going to score. It's interesting to me, because that leaves 32-4-0 when they allow 2 or fewer, which most teams are 32-4-0 when they allow 2 or fewer. But
I really think we look at Dorofeev with some. How many is it? Dorofeev or Feev? Like, it's gone back and forth a couple times.
It's Fee now.
Dorofeev. Okay, well, Dorofeev is. We kind of look at this through rose-colored glasses at times, right? Like, he has 2 goals in his last 7 games.
He was bad last night,
and he's a rookie, man.
Yeah,
like, you think Bruce Cassidy is going to put him in over Amadio? Can we just sometimes
not over Amadio?
No chance.
Nor should he. I honestly do not believe he should. Strength-wise, just physical strength alone, I would prefer Amadio.
And those teams, these are 3 pretty big teams that they're going to go up against, no matter who it is. Really, even Seattle's pretty beefy. But LA, strong.
Defense,
Winnipeg,
for sure. Their
really
defense
strong.
is. Yeah.
Can we just?
Winnipeg's not as strong, I don't think.
I don't want to think we're beating up on Dorofeev at all, because I think he's, to me, like, man, come back next year, make the roster, and you're going to be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I think he can be the fill-in. If we have 7 players in our top 6 at the moment, he's 7, right? He can be the next guy. If Amadio's not getting it done, put Dorofeev in. Like, I have no problem with that. I just don't think the value of putting him on a line with Howden and Bluger is there. I just don't see it. And even one of those has to come out because Wah's in.
You know who he's going to go? You know who Dorofeev is going to be the Yoel Kiviranta of this year.
Oh, that would be nice. That would be great.
Even though he's got a little bit more success than Kiviranta, but that was wild. That was the Dallas Stars a few years ago when he came out of nowhere, had a hat. Was it 3 goals or 4 goals? At least a hat trick in one
scored
game.
against the Golden Knights. I've been really focusing on Dorofeev. I look more when I'm at games. I feel like I can see a little bit more of how strength comes into play, speed comes into play, those types of things. He could not hang on to the puck yesterday, and I don't think Seattle's necessarily the strongest team, but they are a fast team. They play a quick game, and I just did not think he was up for the speed of the game yesterday. And with it, it led to that first line really not doing much. Like you look at it, and it was Juan Marchessault, so it's not the best first line the Golden Knights have, but they didn't do much. Like the Golden Knights needed all of it coming from Amadio, Smith, and Carlson yesterday. For me, like I don't think that he's going to be up for the speed of what you're going to get from three teams that are going to come at you, and two of them have quite a bit of playoff experience. I don't like his chances there.
Yeah, I agree with you. So do you think Barbashev, Stevenson, Kessel? I mean,
so I'm leaning that way. I think it's possible that when we get to a playoff series, he might throw Barbashev back up, move Waugh to the wing on the third line, and then the fourth line would be Houghton, Bluger, and Kolesar.
You see Stevenson
possible.
But I also think there's a chance we see Stone with Stevenson at some point.
Yeah, Stevenson would go up, so you'd have Stevenson,
Eichel, Stone.
And then Marchessault comes down to the second line. That to me, that kind of minimizes Amadio's impact, and I don't love the idea of that because I do feel like he can play defense enough. I think he helps break out, and like I said earlier, I don't like Barbashev helping get transition going. I really don't think he's good at that. And so Marchessault can be and has been with the Misfits over time, but in the playoffs, it's kind of gone away at different times. So I think I'd rather utilize Marchessault in that role up top and then hope that you can get something out of Stevenson because Kessel has been best with Stevenson. You take Stevenson away from Kessel, I don't think Kessel's the same with Nick Waugh.
No, I don't think Nick Waugh is the real driver for him in any way. I've liked Kessel in this iteration of him a lot.
Yeah, for sure. He's been the best player on the line for the past 15 games, 20 games.
And listen, we spent an awful lot of this year trying to get Phil Kessel going. Like Bruce Cassidy used up a lot of airspace saying we got to get basically.
And then are we going to switch it? Are we going to get to the playoffs and then just take the player away from him? Who there's an argument like the concern is Stevenson. So the idea of moving Stevenson up with Eichel and Stone is like that's going to for sure get Stevenson going. He's never been there and failed. Where he's at now, he has had some trouble. Like, is it going to be Kessel's fault if Stevenson has a tough series? And then also look at the third lines again. Like Fiala, Lazat, Iafallo, that should be one that the third line can do some damage against. This one's a tough one. Appleton, Lowry, Niederreiter. Like maybe you want more defense there. Here, Gord, Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, like you need something out of your third line in that one. So I guess maybe if you play the Kings, you want to leave it, but otherwise, maybe you do want Stevenson moving up and just try to get a net wash in your third line.
Yeah, well, I could see that. Stevenson's kind of he concerns me, I guess, is what it comes down to. You know, like he can just absolutely go missing, and it's not just the missing factor; it's the oh boy, bad play, oh where were you type of thing, you know. But he's been so good lately. So I think he's largely been cured of that. I like that combination. This is the part of the byproduct of having a team that's just been so interchangeable this year in Cassidy's eyes, right? There aren't really any set lines at all. There really haven't.
Marchessault or Smith and Carlson are together, I think, is probably the only one.
Right.
But so like we're looking, even the good Stevenson, which has been better. We've got 10 points in our last 9 games, assists. 8 of those are assists. But like to me, I still don't feel like he's driving. Here and there, we've had some good games. A couple of those games in there, he was one of the best players on the team. He does it with speed. He does it with getting out in transition. He does it with holding pucks and carrying it around the goal. I don't know how much we're going to see of that in a postseason series. Maybe if it's against Winnipeg or Seattle, but if it's LA or Edmonton, I don't love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree at all. So how are we looking at the D right now? I mean, we feeling confident we're going to see a pretty big crew. I mean, White Cloud, we're hoping is going to be okay here. I mean, this is it. He's good. Like I thought he was in bad shape at the other night. I couldn't
He has
believe
not
it. That
stepped on the ice yet. So, I mean, it would have been nice if he were on the ice today. I would assume they're going to try to get him back in there for game one. I don't think they have to rush it to get him in there for game one. If he's not 100%, maybe let's hold off because Pahal or Korzak can hold down the fort, or Hutton if you opt to go that way. I don't mind that. Hasn't really seemed to affect them in the last, whatever it's been, 15 games, 10 games, 8 games, whatever it's been since Theodore's been out. So not that worried about it. But yeah, it looked really bad, and it certainly appears that it's not.
I thought he was a goner. Like his knee went the wrong way.
Yeah,
I'd like, oh boy, this is not bad. Good.
Yeah.
He's a tough dude. The team's way different. I shouldn't say way different, but I think they're just a way better club with him in the lineup. Like he's the guy you need in front of you as a goalie. You really do. And Hutton, I love that he comes in and puts points up every now and then, but I don't have that same type of confidence. So Hutton does seem like the he's 7 though, don't you think? You think he's ahead of
for
course
sure.
Paul
sure.
by a
Absolutely.
mile. I mean, Hutton's
Absolutely.
been there all year long, but I think
100%.
This is an area where I wish the Golden Knights had one more bullet in the chamber, be honest with you, the decor.
We made that argument at the deadline. Would have been better than Quick.
Hey, they made their decision. So feel pretty good about it.
One thing we don't really have to talk about, by the way. Brossoit's the starter.
Yeah, he's the guy. Good deal. And by the way,
I mean,
so something I noticed about him last night is that, and I tweeted it real quick, but
I saw your tweet.
Remember last year when he was just getting roasted up high, like blocker side, and he was lingering on his posts and post integrations, which basically means he was down way too long and shots were just beating him up high. So he has been very active this year on shots high into the posts when he's already in his post integration, what we call RVH. He's moving upward into shots. He's staying reactive. I'm really impressed by this change because this is something that he must have integrated into his own game by, one, being reflective and looking back on what didn't work last year. And then 2, taking that a step further and saying, hey, while I'm rehabbing this, while I'm even down in the American League for most of the season, I'm going to make a conscious effort to get myself better here and not just rest on who I've been, like some goalies tend to do. So I'm impressed by that. It's a little detail to the game, but I think it's an element that Brossoit maybe didn't have before, was being a little bit more reactive while down and on his posts. Somebody asked me on Twitter if that's a Sean Burke thing. This was a very technical detail. I'd be very surprised if it was a Sean Burke thing at all, because it was from last year to this year. And honestly, I think Brossoit was off the radar in the first place. I think that this was driven from Brossoit himself or whatever goalie coach that he gets to work with in the offseason, saying, hey, this is what we're going to target. We're going to get better about this. And thing is, offseason, he really didn't have a lot of chance to work because he was recovering from hip surgery.
Couldn't.
So,
but
in any case,
in season, you got AHL games constantly. It's not hard to say, let's work on that, knowing that, and the stats weren't all that good. It's
that team sucks though. The American League's such a different animal. Freddie Brathwaite's a pretty good hockey mind. Like I
have noticed when he's locked into the post in RVH, he does lift up way more than he did before. That off angle shot that beat him multiple times last season, it has no chance this time, and guys are still shooting it, which that's one where I'm interested in what that looks like. I guess we will get into goalies because it does appear he's the guy. I think it's hard to argue against it. Hasn't lost a regulation start. Thompson's not ready. Hill's probably not the guy. Quick's clearly not the guy. It's pretty clear he should be the guy. When we get into a playoff series, what concerns do you have about him? Because we've talked about it. He is a career backup. What concerns do you think other teams are going to be looking at saying, that's how we're going to beat this guy?
Brossoit, to me, I mean, he's a career number 2, really. Can he shake that label? That's what it comes down to. I mean, I spent a whole lifetime, it felt like, trying to shake a label of being a good American League goalie, and I couldn't do it. Whether that was through my
3, right?
Yeah, whether that was through my own performance or just who I was and what I was labeled as, that was just reality. I think like LB is a really sharp goalie, is a crisp goalie to me. I think his movements are by far the most regimented amongst the Vegas Golden Knights goalies. He's the most predictable goaltender. I think he lacks the top end explosiveness and athleticism.
To get across, you mean?
Yes. There are times to me that, at least compared to, listen, I mean, you might as well, compared to Saros or Vasilevskiy, let's compare to the top guys in the NHL. Brossoit does not have that same type of explosive power. He looks, I think lethargic is a bad word here, because he's not lethargic. It's just, it's very calculated, right?
Yeah.
It's like, to me, his movements are kind of like if you took Carey Price and slowed them down by like a 20th of a second. You know what I mean?
Yep. So
ultimately, I think that the top end just really isn't there. Like, I don't think he has great hands at all. I haven't seen him make, the big, glove saves don't happen with him, because it's not his goal either. He is much more of a structured goalie. But I don't think he has great hands. Like, even watching Gord's shot down the wing from Seattle.
Yep.
He didn't track that puck well at all last night. That's where I get concerned. I think he can get beat clean by that, because he doesn't always track the best. His hands aren't great. He's not quite the most explosive. But again, under Cassidy, like, most shots are to the outside. LB's in business, and he does a good job of protecting the middle of the net. So I guess the long and the short of it is, can you win a Stanley Cup with them? And I'm uncertain of that. I don't. The track record just isn't there, and the eye test is not there of a dominant game-stealing goalie.
It's fair.
But do they really need that?
You play Edmonton, you probably do. You play Colorado, you probably do. If you get through it where it's
a couple games.
If it's Winnipeg, LA, Dallas, maybe you don't. Winnipeg, LA, Minnesota, maybe you don't. But I think you play Edmonton, you play Colorado, you're going to need that guy to be that guy. And I don't know what to do with Thompson. So I don't know if you saw Cassidy's comment regarding him today. He said he was not able to make it through the rigors of the workload. And I think he means in what the return to play workload was. So they were giving him time on the other rink. They were giving him time in practice. He's not playing tomorrow. We know that for sure. So he will not have a game under his belt. A full game. His last full game is before the All-Star break, right? Because the first game after the All-Star break's the first time he got hurt. Then he came back again and got hurt in that game. So his last full game is pre-All-Star break. I don't know how you put him back in there. I really don't. I think Hill might be ahead of him.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know. I mean, for me,
might still.
I'm scared that Thompson's going to hop back in and hurt himself right off the bat.
Well, you might have already done that in practice.
Right. Well, I don't want to speculate on that. I think it just, by saying he couldn't stay with the rigors, it just means he's hurting still.
Right.
And honestly, come playoff time, this is how it works. He's out of sight, out of mind. Now, Hill's going to go play games, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
Hill is not going to go for.
No, he played 2 periods.
Hill did.
He played 2 periods with Henderson. It was a planned 2 periods. Then Patera came in off of that. Yeah. He is not expected to play tomorrow. He may be the backup tomorrow. I'm not sure. But he is not going. They're done. They play Friday and Saturday, and Henderson's done. And I do not believe Hill is playing either of those games.
But that's what I mean. He got his game down there. He got minutes. He did play a game.
He got 2 periods. He got 2 periods.
He's clearly number 3 at least, and Thompson's out of sight, out of mind. That's what this is. And it's good that Patera's back, by the way. I'm glad to see that, because that was a pretty scary knock on the noggin.
Yeah, that was. Vikman's playing tonight. I haven't seen what's going on there. Hopefully. Vikman, Oscar, or Jesper Vikman. Yeah, not Venkman.
Oh, damn it. I thought it was like Venkman from Ghostbusters. No, I know.
All right, so one of the things, when we get to the postseason, we always get these montages of all the highlights from past playoffs in this season, and then there's guys holding up the cup, and we get all the old guys on there telling about how awesome it is to win the cup. You're going to hear lots of it over the course of the next few months. When you look at the Golden Knights organization as a whole, name me some people, players, coaches, executives, owners, trainers, whoever. Who would make you most excited to see lift the cup?
for the Vegas Golden Knights?
Correct. I do not care if any other team wins. In fact, I don't want any other team to win. If the Golden Knights aren't going to win, I hope they don't hand the thing out.
It's a really hard team because so many of these players have not, really been lifer type of guys. I will say the one person that instantly jumps to my mind is Critter. It's Chris.
Yep, Davidson Adams.
Chris Stevenson Adams. Yeah, the equipment manager.
Davidson. Yeah.
Davidson Adams. I apologize. Yes, Chris Davidson Adams. He's been doing this forever, man. Right. And I don't know if he has a cup or not. I feel bad that I don't.
I don't believe he does. I'm pretty sure he does not. No.
I'd be thrilled for him. I'd be thrilled for Dubs, for J.W. Aiken, who's the assistant equipment guy. Like, dude, we were in Syracuse together with Dubs, and he went to 2 finals in the American League and didn't win. I'd love it if he won one in the NHL. I look up and down that roster for the Golden Knights, and I think like Mark Stone comes to mind because it would take as much as he's battled through these last couple of years with his own injuries and coming from Ottawa to chase a cup to go to Vegas, really, I think he would be top of my list, real high. Riley Smith is right there.
Yep.
Braden McNabb's already won a couple, but I'd still
one.
Yeah, or one. Yeah,
he may not have even gotten the one. He might have come in after the one. It's possible he doesn't have one.
I think he had it, but I think for me, like it'd probably be like Stone and Riley Smith are right towards the top for me. And obviously Marshy too. Man, Marshy's been in the league a lot longer than people realize, and knowing where
he does not have one, by the way. McNabb.
Does he not? Really? So when did
he was in Buffalo prior to getting there. They won their second. He came in the following year afterwards and spent 3 years at LA before coming here. So he does not have one.
So he rockets right to the top for me. Because you're getting Braden McNabb, you're getting to the point in your career where you're thinking, I don't know how many more years I have left with as hard as he plays.
You haven't named one of the first ones that came to mind for me.
Yeah?
Bruce.
I was going to say Plan E.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great for him. I would imagine maybe he'd smile. Maybe. I don't.
Bruce would be. Sure. Listen, Bruce would be deserving, but on that staff who I think it's pretty undercover, but one of the most important guys in the entire organization is Misha Donskov.
Yeah.
I don't think people know that.
Been around for a long time. Yep.
Misha started from about nothing in Columbus, building up hockey schools there with his father. And he's such a good person. He's worked his ass off to get to where he is. He's so well respected. I think he's actually the winner now that I think of it now. Okay. I do. Like knowing his story and his roots, if you ever look into it, Misha Donskov's a guy you big time root for.
Yep.
So
I just think Bruce is. I think Bruce. The thing that jumps off the board to me with Bruce, and then the other one who you haven't mentioned, which is Marchessault, is
I gave
Marchessault there's something to the guys who I feel like their entire existence in hockey would be useless without it. Where I don't think that's the case for a Chris Davidson Adams. I'm not sure that's the case it doesn't feel necessarily that way for a Braden McNabb. It feels that way for a Mark Stone. It feels that way. And you might be able to throw Eichel in that. It's hard to say. I want to see how he plays. It's tough. We'll see on him. But like for me, if Bruce Cassidy were to retire without winning a Stanley Cup, I think he would basically tell you, I failed my entire career. I don't think you could say that about the Golden Knights front office, who McPhee has not won for like 30 years. I don't think he thinks I've wasted my time all of the way here. I think you would get that out of Marchessault, out of Stone, out of maybe Eichel, certainly Cassidy. And so that's why for those guys, I look at it and say, those are some of the guys that I would really be excited to see win.
That's good. Those are good answers. I mean, it's a fun exercise to look around the league and teams and figure them out because you can really see that elation. The best one on a personal level for myself, like obviously I never won.
Right.
But I got to tell you, man, like this might be story time with Mike here.
Yeah, let's just do it. Go right to it.
Okay. So, this will probably be 5 minutes and indulge me here, folks, because it means a lot to me. But I played a game freshman year of college at St. Lawrence against Cornell, and the other team's goalie was David Lenevue. David Lenevue ended up being drafted second round of the Phoenix Coyotes. He was a big time prospect. Guess what? Cornell was unbelievable. He never saw any shots. It's a classic case of an overvalued goaltender because of the team he was on. I ended up going sixth round, 4 rounds later. Okay, me and Curtis McElhenney went right next to each other, and we were the two of the last goalies left, along with Kari Lettinen from the 02 draft, and I was teammates with both of them. I talked to both of them yesterday, put it that way, which is so cool. But after this game in college at St. Lawrence, we played Cornell, and I got asked to come into the coach's room afterwards. We lost 2-1 in overtime. I remember it distinctly. It was a shot from the point. It got deflected. It went up over my glove and in. But I played lights out, Ken. Like, I knew I played as well as I could against a team that beat us every game in Cornell. Yep. Cornell's a wagon. Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm knows this very well. Okay? He may have even been there for this, for all we know. But I got asked to come into the coach's office because the Nashville Predators wanted to talk to me. And I went, oh, wow. Okay. Because I had been on the radar for Central Scouting, but this was the first real interaction I had. And I walk in, and it was one of the heads of their amateur scouting, and it was Mitch Korn, their goalie coach, at St. Lawrence University to see me play, not David Lenevue. And we talked for a while, and I already knew who Mitch was because there was an old publication called Goalie's World Magazine out there. And Goalie's World Magazine is what I taught myself how to play goalie with at a higher level, because they didn't have goalie coaches. From 97 to 2005, when I was in junior in college, I didn't have a goalie coach. I had me. I had to figure it out.
I bet you they didn't before 97 either.
Nope. So I had this magazine, and I had articles, and Mitch Korn would write articles occasionally. And I learned from that. And I thought, wow, here's this 5'5" Jew from the Bronx that's an NHL goalie coach who went to Kent State, and he is just brilliant, right? And I say that in the biggest term of endearment because meeting Mitch just was kind of everything to me. I thought it was the coolest thing. Well, I go that summer, 2002, I get drafted by the Nashville Predators, 172nd overall in Toronto. And, 6th round, I kind of had a feeling. I'm like, maybe it'll happen right here. Goalies were starting to go in the draft. There's always a late round,
team,
5th, 6th round. And it happened. Well, that meeting with Mitch Korn changed my life. I was never signed by Nashville, but I went to 4 development camps with them in Nashville. I was the coolest guy there because I drove in from St. Louis, so I had a car. Everybody else had to fly in, right? So here I am, cool guy with a car, driving around guys like Ryan Suter, Dan Hanyus, Shea Weber, Brian, Murderers Row, those Nashville players, Alexander Radulov. I had him in the car wheeling them around at these camps. Scotty Upshaw, all of these. And from those years with Mitch, it turned into me working goalie camps for Mitch in St. Louis, which he had one, going on the road with Mitch to work camps in Cincinnati, and spending the better part of 3 weeks of the year, out of the summer with him. Again, I never got to play for Mitch for more than 3 weeks in Milwaukee when he wasn't even the goalie coach. It was a Predators system. They needed a goalie. They called me up for 3 weeks on a PTO, which was very much appreciated. I allowed 3 goals on 4 shots in the one game I played. Mitch did the best he could for me. I didn't do the best I could for Mitch. I walked out of there in tears out of that game. I thought my American League career was over. A year and a half later, I got to play in the NHL. So stick with it, kids. Long story short. Mitch Korn. Yeah, you're right. It's been 5 minutes. Mitch Korn has been probably the biggest mentor in my entire life. A dear friend, somebody that I think the world of. And I still coach his camp every summer when he comes to town. I help out. My daughter's going to be in it this year for the first time as goalie camp. She's going to be in the goalie camp with Martin Brodeur's kid. So we'll have myself and, Marty Brodeur's old teammate, me, in camp together. But a couple of years ago when the Washington Capitals beat the Vegas Golden Knights, when I looked up and saw the Washington Capitals goalie coach, and Vegas fans, please, I'm sorry, but I have to tell this. When I saw Mitch lift the Stanley Cup, I that's probably the hardest, non-emotional, emotional cry I've ever had. You know what I mean? Yep. And the amazing part was that this was like thousands of people. Like, we all call ourselves the children of the corn. All these people that have come in contact with Mitch, that have maintained relationships. We're in a fantasy hockey league called the Elite Corn Hockey League that Mitch is not a part of, but he is an unofficial part of. He shows up to the draft every year so we can all hang with Mitch, because we all worked for Mitch. We all knew Mitch. That was one of the most powerful moments in my life.
That's cool.
Definitely watching TV. And I guess my point is, to everybody that's listening to this, is that if you've been in hockey for a long time, you have somebody like that you've been dying to see win a Stanley Cup. And as a fan, I hope everybody latches on to someone like that, because it's about the most fulfilling thing to live vicariously through somebody, to see it, but just to be so happy for another human being.
Do you have one? Do you have another one for this year, whether it's any team?
Well, I don't, because the Capitals are out, and it's their assistant coach, Scott Allen. He's on my Mount Rushmore, man. He coached me in 5 cities. Like, if I won the Calder Cup years ago, he was going to ride his Harley to the reception, and I've told him I'll be there no matter what, the same way. The cool part is that this goes without generations. These are coaches that I've become that close with, that we are that close with as players sometimes. So in any case, I'm really happy that you let me share that one, because it meant a lot to me. And I'm sorry.
That's a good one.
The Washington Capitals winning the Stanley Cup.
Well, yeah. I mean, it culminated in the worst team winning. Let's be honest.
Put it this.
The Sharks have never won, but
put it this way, though: if Misha Donskov were to win, there's a lot of people from hockey that would be doing the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, just even just here in Vegas, people should understand that this was one of the first hires. Like, he was early on, and what's cool about him is, like, he's a great example of someone who went through every single step. He's not former player that falls into a job as assistant GM or whatever. Like, he was the video coach for Team Canada in the World Juniors. Like, that's where this guy started from, not to mention his dad had hockey camps and hockey school and all that. That's definitely a good one. All right, we'll give you the last word on Everett's question. This is the final episode before the playoffs begin. We'll be at least one game, potentially 2 games in. We'll know whether we're doing it on Thursday or Wednesday next week. Who you got winning the Cup?
Dallas Stars.
Really?
Yep. I think the Eastern teams are going to beat the living shit out of each other. I think Dallas is going to just backdoor their way into winning this thing. It's a hunch.
Okay, fair enough. And I'll answer this question. Do you know what's going to happen with the televised games next year? We do not. We know that AT&T Sportsnet is still planning on broadcasting tomorrow's game, and then the first round. After the first round, they turn over to national TV. After that, we do not know. I would imagine it's going to come down to the league decision. If the league goes to some sort of streaming service or some way to make it internet only, then I think the Golden Knights will just funnel into that, and it'll be basically all produced by the Golden Knights. If not, I would imagine that there will be some sort of TV channel that will step up, and once again, the Golden Knights will basically do the entire broadcast. They currently do it now. There are very few people employed by only AT&T Sportsnet that are not employed by the Golden Knights. They would not have to change over their entire organization to make that happen. All of the names that you know outside of Chris Jones, who's on Nightlife, everyone else from Dave, Ashley, Shane, Gary, Darren, Derek. Who else am I missing?
A fourth Darren. No, you're right.
It's everyone else.
Everyone. Chris Jones is an AT&T Sportsnet employee, but he lives in Vegas. Jonesy is an unbelievable guy. I saw him when he came through St. Louis. The entire production staff, basically AT&T is gone. Like, it's going away. Yeah. Everybody's losing their jobs. Every one of them.
I said all that. But yeah, it's not going to be that hard for them to do it. I think that they could easily flip a switch, produce their own broadcast, and put it on whichever network decides that they want it. So I don't think it's the main thing is, from a Golden Knights fan perspective, you are in zero danger of not being able to see every single game next year. None. There is 0% chance that you cannot watch games, whether you live in Vegas or you live somewhere else. There is no concern about that at all.
It's a mess, though, in terms of
It
the
is.
regional sports providers, especially like Bally's is going. Bally's is bankrupt, but they're apparently going to get free of Sinclair, who holds that. Like, we have no idea what's going to happen with
But
this.
from a
And
fan
here's
perspective,
the NHL is in a different position than the MLB, right? Baseball has enough money and clout, and baseball they already have MLB TV. Like MLB Network, they own that. NHL Network, it's owned by MLB TV.
MLB,
Okay, so
yeah.
like they already have in-house capability to produce these games. I think with Major League Baseball, the NHL doesn't. And it is not. I know what you mean that Vegas fans are going to be good and everything, but it's not quite as simple as saying, okay, we're going to just produce these ourselves and hope you make it happen.
No.
So
my point is they're not going to let the ball drop. This isn't something
correct.
that they're forgetting about. And who's making the money off of this, or in this case, footing the bill for all of this, does not matter to fans at all. Unless you
Nope.
work for one of these businesses, who cares? And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, tell me what streaming service or channel I need to buy, and I will buy it.
Yep, that's all true. It sucks for Matt. Sucks for thinking about like some of the producers at AT&T are still really good friends, man. Like
I think yeah, that they're good at what they do. I would imagine that they will probably find places to do it. All right, so
you guys are going to be good.
Yeah, let's finish with what happens tomorrow. I'll put the grid back up. I'm assuming you're going to pick one of the 8 Winnipegs.
Oh man, I need to go look back at my notes because I can't remember what it was. Let's just say it's Winnipeg. They end up playing.
Yeah. Okay.
I also will pick Winnipeg. That's a good question because
I believe the Golden Knights will win tomorrow.
Yeah. I don't know what to think.
I don't think I will ever pick Seattle in a game against Vegas until something massively changes. And part of that is I think their coach is terrible, by the way. And maybe we should just end on that. I think the Golden Knights have a much better coach than Seattle. I think the Golden Knights are going to win tomorrow. I think they're going to play Winnipeg. I'm going to pick Vegas in 6 against Winnipeg, partially because I know that means 2 trips to Winnipeg for me. And what fun would the playoffs be if I don't have to make 2 trips to Winnipeg? Nonetheless, that's going to be great.
I'll go Winnipeg in 5. If they go to 6, feel free to give.
Winnipeg in 5?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Winnipeg. They're going to beat Winnipeg in 5.
Okay.
They're going to beat Winnipeg in 5. Did I say Jesus? It's getting late here. I think they're going to beat them in 5. If it goes to 6 games, Ken, I'll be happy to fly up there to Winnipeg and join you. So
let's go. Well, I'm going through Grand Forks. I'll rent the car. We'll drive up together.
Well, I can fly to Grand Forks from here, no problem.
Let's go. All right. Okay. That's good. Thanks again to the Jimerson Law Firm for sponsoring every episode of this. Yes, we will, of course, be doing goalie interference all throughout the entire playoffs. It may or may not be on Wednesday. I don't know, because we'll have to wait and see what the schedule is. The plan will always be Wednesday. If it is not, I would imagine it will go back, because the more games we see, the more fun it is, the more we have to talk about. That's it. Good night, everybody. See ya.
Goodbye.